Sure.
I was going to just kind of say a few words. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are very aware in our feedback from all the teens in the hubs that one of the things that the teens always say that they get from their experience with the hubs is greater self-confidence. And I think that's probably one of the most important things as a person that you can get, whether it's in any part of your life, but in your work world, and certainly if you're working to be a leader and a change maker, building up your own self-confidence is critical. As you look at leadership and how you work to learn to be a leader, one of the things that's really important is learning to be empathetic and to listen. And Brene Brown has researched these issues for over 20 years and has one of the top 5 TED Talks in the world. And I'm going to ask if somebody can put the TED Talk, Brene Brown TED Talk, it's 20 minutes. And I'm going to ask all of you to please make a commitment to watch that in your free time if you haven't watched it. It's amazing. And her work is all about vulnerability. So Alexis has found a couple videos that are shorter than 20 minutes that we're gonna watch together today, and then we're gonna talk about it. We've got about 20 minutes left. So that's what our focus is right now for this skills training. So I'm with that background. Thank you very much, Alicia. Why don't you go ahead, Alexis, and kick it off?
So if I could have, so I'm gonna have you share your screen. Or I guess I could, it's just my computer.
Okay, I can share my screen.
Okay, and then just click on the first video is a 3-minute video of Brene Brown, who is a researcher and made her breakthrough doing that TED Talk that Alicia sent on vulnerability and the power of it. And she is a psychotherapist, but does more research. And so the first one is her on 60 Minutes, where she really breaks down what it is, because I feel like people hear the word vulnerability and they think, oh, I have to cry. And she's like, no. So there we go.
So you are a woman who is a VP, senior VP, director, CEO, or company founder, and you work in a high.
There we go.
In order for transformation to happen, in order for there to be success by any metric, money, stock price, market share, whatever your metric is, you can't get there without brave leaders and courageous cultures.
You can teach courage.
Oh, you can absolutely teach courage. 4 skill sets. Number 1 being vulnerability.
I bet you that not too many years ago, if you had corporate leaders talking about their vulnerability in the office place, they'd have been laughed out of the office.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's still the case in some places. It's just, if you're at the top of a Fortune 500 company and your success metric depends on creativity and innovation, and you've set up a culture where vulnerability is seen as weakness, don't expect great results.
Don't expect the creativity.
No, because I mean, innovation by definition is idea, iteration, failure, iteration, failure, iteration. Places where they're doing the most remarkable kind of high risk, high reward, innovating, huge tolerances for vulnerability. And so if you have leaders who are either preaching a gospel of vulnerability as weakness or modeling that, just don't expect great things.
You have said that vulnerability without boundaries is not vulnerability.
Mm-mm.
What do you mean by that? I'm not sure I understand.
When I go work with organizations, sometimes I'll hear someone say something like, how often should I cry in front of my team? And I'm like, oh my God, like, that's not what I'm saying. Vulnerability is not about, self-disclosure. Like, I know leaders who never cry, who are very vulnerable and transparent. And I know leaders who cry all the time, who are just BSers, and if there's, vulnerability is great. Faux vulnerability are like fake vulnerability, because vulnerability seems to be a thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
That pisses people off.
So you're not advocating for people to just put it all out
No,
there.
all I'm saying about vulnerability is that when you are in uncertainty, when you feel at risk, when you feel exposed, don't tap out. Stay brave, stay uncomfortable, stay in the cringy moment, lean into the hard conversation, and keep leading. Stay brave. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you need to overshare. I'm not saying you need to disclose. I'm not saying you need to weep uncontrollably to show how human you are. I'm saying try to be aware of your armor. And when you feel vulnerable, try not to transform up. Try to stay human, keep leaning. Very different things.
Okay. Oh, and then the second video is like a shortened version of her TED Talk. So she kind of digs a little deeper into vulnerability and courage and how necessary it is for, I mean, frankly, I think everyone in whatever profession you go into, but especially activists, because you're going to be having those uncomfortable conversations and you're going to be leading people. Yep. And so this one's about like 6 minutes.
Okay, thanks for the patience here in figuring this out. You might have to listen to some.
We think about vulnerability as a dark emotion. You know, there are a lot of people who talk about positive emotions, negative emotions, dark emotions, light emotions. We think of vulnerability as a dark emotion. We think of it as the core of fear and shame and grief and disappointment, uncertainty, things that we do not want to feel, right? Things that I don't want to be vulnerable because that means I'm afraid. That means I'm uncertain. That means I'm at risk. I'm exposed. I'm in grief. So what we do is we armor up and we say, I do not want to slip into these dark emotions. I will not let myself be vulnerable. But here's what I learned from the research and certainly put into motion in my own life that was the most life-changing, is that vulnerability is the center of difficult emotion. But it's also the birthplace of every positive emotion that we need in our lives. Love, belonging, joy, empathy. How many of you would agree that we're in a serious empathy deficit in our culture today? Totally, right? No vulnerability, no empathy. In a culture where people are afraid to be vulnerable, you can't have empathy. You know, empathy is not a default response. If you share something with me that's difficult, in order for me to be truly empathic, I have to step into what you're feeling. And that's vulnerable. So there can be no empathy without vulnerability. Why do you think, in that example that I used a while ago, daughter comes home and says, you know, tears, no one sat with me at lunch today. They made fun of what I was wearing. So-and-so won't talk to me. They poured my books out of my locker. And the response back is, I told you, I bought you all those cute jeans. Why aren't you wearing those jeans? And pull your hair back. Is that an empathic response? No, it's a shaming response. Could that shaming response be at that? Could a mother who absolutely adores her child respond with that shaming response? Please say yes. Don't kid yourself. I mean, come on. If you're a parent sitting in here, then you sure as hell know the answer to that is yes. But why? Why did that happen? Where was the access to vulnerability? Where was empathy? You can't access empathy if you're not willing to be vulnerable. So if my daughter comes home and tells that to me, guess what I have to do? I have to reactivate that sweaty palmed 7th grader who lives inside me. And I have to go, That's so hard. I'm so sorry. That's happened to me. That's happened to me when I was in middle school, and it's happened to me last week. Let's talk about it. But you can't get there without vulnerability. You can't fake empathy. Innovation and creativity, born of vulnerability. This is my favorite part. I talked about this I did another TED Talk this year in Long Beach. And I told the story that during 2011 and even this year, after the big TEDx Houston talk went viral, the big calls came from Fortune 500 companies. Oh my God, we loved your TED Talk. It was great. Please come talk to all of our senior leaders. And it's like, okay, what do you want to talk about? Like, we don't care. Just come and talk to us. Just if you could ixnay the shame and vulnerability talk. Every single conversation, barring maybe 10%. I was like, well, what do you mean? Well, we love, you're funny. You have this great research. I think there's a real fit with what we do. We don't really do, that kind of stuff around here. So if you could not mention vulnerability and shame. So just for fun, for grins, I would say, okay, so what would you like me to talk about? Yeah. Fourth quarter earnings, like freaking don't even balance my checkbook. I'm not going to talk about that. So what do you want me to talk about? Well, the big issue, creativity and innovation. And change. We're going through a lot of change. Like, okay, so vulnerability is the birthplace of creativity, innovation, change. And the reason that crisis is happening is because you're not talking about vulnerability. Imagine creativity and innovation without vulnerability. I'm asking you for a work product that has never been made before, that's completely innovative. I need you to be creative, and then I need you to present it to a group of people who are half of them are gonna think it's stupid and not understand it. No vulnerability there.
Sweet.
Okay.
I'm going to make a bold statement and say that doing a TEDx talk is going to be the most transformative.
Okay, I should have stopped it.
So now Fenna and I worked on questions to kind of get a little discussion going. She is going to run a Mentimeter something board, Mentimeter. So I'm going to let Fenna take it from here.
Yeah. Linda, could you make me a co-host so I can share my screen?
Yes.
Thank you.
You are a co-host.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, first of all, while you're starting, Fenna, just can I ask, have any of you seen that, heard of Brene Brown or watched any of her work? Julie, Jessica, anybody else? Alex? Okay, so, Alicia, Akshat, Sarah, okay, Alexis, okay. Christy, okay, so I was just curious. Okay, let's keep going.
Okay, sorry, it's taking me a minute. So you should all see here, there's a code at the top, so you can just go to menti.com and then add the code, and then we can get started with this first question.
Can you put the code, the link to the organization and the code in the chat?
Yes, 1 second.
And I am trying to figure out where you sign up for Mentimeter because it's not clear on the website.
You can go to the menti.com and then you add the code that's at the top of the screen, which I'll also put in the chat.
Okay, I'm at mentimeter.com, but I don't see where to put the code. Maybe I'll put some. Okay.
I think there's just a box.
Okay, here I have Okay. Maybe somebody, could you just share your screen and show? I'm just having a hard time finding it. So let me, is everybody else finding it?
Yeah, I didn't have to sign up. If I just went to www.menti.com and then it just had enter code.
Oh, mine says there's not even a code. It just says, what does vulnerability mean to you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, then that's the right.
So
thing.
you're already in, Linda.
Okay, sorry, I just wasn't sure how to get there. Okay.
No worries. So just what this question means to you, can add some words. You can add up to 3 words and they're going to pop up here in a little word cloud. And then maybe we can have some people share why you put down the word that you did. But we'll give you all a second to kind of submit.
And I would like to suggest that you can use more than just one word, like a couple words is okay.
Yeah. Has everyone submitted? Gonna assume that's a yes. Okay, so we have a lot of different answers here. These are very good. Would anyone like to share why you put down the word or the statement on what vulnerability means to you? Maybe just 1 or 2 of you. We don't need to have a super long discussion.
I put the word, I think, honest, because for me, I thought, like, after watching the video and just in general, that vulnerability means, in a sense, not having to be completely open, but in that sense, being genuine with what your vision, what your plan is, or what you're doing, essentially.
Yeah, I like vulnerability, or I guess the idea of it, or just being vulnerable, because I think it leads to connection. I think when you can give someone that safe space to know that you're not going to retreat, or you can actually hear, you know, their story or how they're feeling, and maybe it's criticism to, you know, what you've done or what you've said. Maybe you've hurt them in the past. I think being able to be vulnerable and lean into those uncomfortable conversations garners connection.
Yeah, and we kind of see that with some of the words that were put down, things like being genuine, having empathy, being really honest, being open, taking risks. I think that's really interesting that we have meaningful risks and risk, that those are some of the words that you came up with. So I'm gonna try to go to the second question, so bear with me.
Wait, before you do that, I'm gonna just add non-judgmental. I think being okay, feeling like you're in a safe space so that you're not going to be judged. I just wanted to add that.
Okay, you should be able to answer the second question now, which is, why is vulnerability important for leadership? So it's the same setup. You can just put down a word or statement that you think of based on this question. So same deal with this. Maybe one or two of you could just talk about why you put down the words that you put down. Again, I think it's really interesting, some of the words that we have here about transparency, friendship. What does that mean when you're in a position of quote unquote power? Being creative, fostering creativity, allowing risk taking. I think we see a lot of similarities from the first slide. But does anyone want to elaborate on their answer?
I can elaborate. So I put in safe space, and I just think, you know, I've worked in places where, and a safe space again doesn't have to be this whole like you like Brene Brown said, like, oh, you have to cry or whatever. Like, no, you don't have to share your whole life story, but just feeling safe enough to share your ideas and not be mocked for sharing ideas. And maybe the idea you come up with in, for example, one meeting is not you know, can be saved for another project. So I just think continuously sharing and learning from one another happens when you're vulnerable and you allow for open dialogue in a safe space.
I just want to add on to what Alexis was saying. For my word, I put transformation of culture, because I think like being vulnerable for change makers and activists, it's important that we know how to facilitate sustained dialogue, which kind of allows us to transform the culture of a place if we're able to transform the relationships between people. And something that Brene Brown touched upon was, you know, vulnerability is not, you know, being able to cry in front of people or being, you know, doing that. I think sharing vulnerability on purpose to take meaningful risks with integrity is different than just spilling over yourself and not being able to hold your own emotions. Because for leadership and change makers and activists, we're trying to kind of facilitate this safe space and have a productive and sustained dialogue. And that's a really important quality for any leader and change maker.
Yeah, I agree. That's a really, really good answer. I think culture can either you have a culture which really allows you to feel like you can be really vulnerable, or you don't, and that can sometimes be really challenging. And this kind of fits well into our next question that we have, which isn't a word bubble question, so you don't have to type anything in. It's just a discussion point about when do you feel the most vulnerable. So I'm intrigued as to what you all, or when you all feel the most vulnerable or are in a culture that you feel safe in to be vulnerable.
And we'll wrap this up in a minute, but this is a good question. Thank you, Fenna.
this is our last question. So.
Yeah, I think I feel the most open and vulnerable with my family because I've spent so much time with them and just them because I've moved a lot, and when I didn't have friends, I always had my family with me. So I think, like always, I know them the best and I feel the most comfortable around them.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. I think it's also like I have it with some friend groups where you just feel really comfortable and being yourself. And sometimes you also have that with colleagues and people that you work with, where you know that you can say something without being judged, or that they're really open to listening. And I think that that means that you feel like you can be more vulnerable in those situations. Does anyone else have an answer? I don't want to take up too much time because we're already 2 minutes over.
I think I'll just quickly say, I think the nice thing about vulnerability is that vulnerability begets vulnerability. So it kind of, in some situations, just takes one person to give a little bit of that, and then you start to feel more comfortable giving it back, whether it's a leader or whoever else.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Fenna. This was a really great overview. Thank you, Alexis, for putting that together and for helping with the agenda. This is a fabulous meeting. I'm aware we're 3 minutes over, so I would like to get a group photo. I'm going to stop recording. Thank you for listening.